everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our ninjas all over the world. Thank you all so much for joining today's webinar on our recent 4.4 release. We're always excited to be able to jump online with you guys and show off some of the things we're excited about. My name is Lisa, and I am the marketing manager here at Ninja. On the line with me today are AJ Singh, our VP of Product Management, and Eric Stansky, our Sales Engineer Manager. Both of these guys know Ninja inside and out, so I'm very excited to have them on the line with us today and walk through some of these new features and enhancements for you. You're in good hands with them. Before we get started, I want to let you all know that we will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, but feel free to pop them into the panel at the side of your screen anytime. We may not get to all of the questions, so if there's something that you've asked that we haven't gotten to today, we'll make sure that your account manager reaches out to you directly to help get some of those answers. But again, please feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. We love taking them on. Finally, we are recording our webinar and it will be made available to everybody within 24 hours. So we will make sure to get that out to you so you can share it with your team or catch it again. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass this presentation over to AJ and let him take it away. So AJ, it is all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa, and hello, everyone. I'm yet again very excited to present you the latest features that we released in 4.4, which was our last big release. And let's see. Here's a quick look at all the major features that we release in a nutshell. And to make sure you guys don't get bored to death, I will not make it, or be using PowerPoint much. I'll rather give you a live demo of these features and talk through the individual benefits of each of these features as we go. So let's dive right into it. First feature I'm going to talk about is VMware monitoring. Some of you might have already played with it because this was released as a closed beta in our previous release that was 4.3. So some of you guys requested access and they had it. And with 4.4, it's in general availability now. So I'll spend a couple of minutes to discuss like what that feature really entails. The goal here is to give you guys a single pane of glass view to all your devices. So you already have routers, switches, firewalls, laptops, desktop servers, and now we are adding VMware to the mix as well. Let's actually see how we set it up in the first place. You go into configuration, go into an organization that you want to add your VMware devices to. So I'm going to pick VMware training, which I prepared for this demo. First thing you would do is add the credentials. So these are the credentials to log into your VMware ESXi host. Once you do that, there'll be a new tab here called virtualization. So here is where you will add your VMware host, and I'm going to show you what those settings look like. Here is where you pick the monitoring delegate. So this could be any Windows machine that is running the Ninja agent on it. This is the IP or the DNS for the ESXi host, the port 443, which is used for the API communication, and lastly, the credential that you will be using to connect to the device. You will press the test button. Once it succeeds, it will then give you an option to add it, and that's all you need to do here. So you close it out as well. And when you go back to Ninja, let's actually again go back to that customer. So I'm going to go to organizations, VMware training. This is my ESXi host. Let's click on it. So this shows you a few different things that you haven't seen so far, probably. Things like the total memory used by the ESXi host, the data store, names and capacity, the number of virtual machines running on it, and whatnot. You can also restart the host directly from the Ninja console. If I go to details, the first tab shows you all the health sensors that exist on this virtual machine. You can also filter by the sensors here. So you can check for, hey, show me all the fan and battery sensors. You can also filter by the status. So I'm going to actually clear out these filters. And I'm going to say, hey, show me all the sensors that are in critical, warning, and unknown states. Here's all the usual stuff, things like processor, memory, the data store. We show the read and the write state as well, which shows you how busy the host is, and network tab. Here's where the magic happens. Here's where you see all your virtual machines that exist under this host. And I'm going to select one. And these are all the actions that we allow to be performed within the Ninja console. So you can, suspend, reset, restart the VM and whatnot. If you, however, pick a virtual machine that does not have the VMware tools running, you will see lesser options because the tools give you, I would say, a more um, integrated experience to control your devices, in a better fashion. I could also then click on this virtual machine, and this will appear just like a device in Ninja or any other device in Ninja. So you can see the CPU and memory being used by this specific virtual machine. I can also go to details, see the processor, memory, network, guest tools, if they're installed in the first place, if they're running, and if they're on the latest version or not. And also, you can see all the snapshots that exist for this virtual machine. What we also did in 4.4 was added the ability to create and delete snapshots. So I can actually create a snapshot right here, give it a name, and click add. It will start a task, and it will then create that snapshot for you. It might take a little bit. I can also select a snapshot and delete it right from this console. Let's take a quick look at all the policies for the virtual infrastructure. So first of all, there is a brand new host policy that comes with all these conditions, pre-configured. So you can be alerted on high CPU usage, high memory usage. If the sensors are degraded, so I could say, hey, show me or fire an alert if any of these sensors are in critical or warning or whatever state. I can also get alerted on the uptime thresholds and if the bad sensor count increases beyond a number. So if you want to be alerted, if 2 of the health sensors go bad, you can do that. Similarly, let's take a look at the virtual machine policy. There's a few interesting ones here. There's things like a snapshot size going beyond a certain number, a snapshot lifespan going beyond a certain number. So if a snapshot is, let's say, more than a year old, it might not even be useful, or the guest tools are not running. So this sums up VMware monitoring in a nutshell. Next feature I'm going to talk about is TeamViewer. So TeamViewer released a brand new API, which is a lot more powerful than what they currently offer. And that's actually enabled us giving you guys a lot of cool things. First thing you can do using the new TeamViewer API is being able to connect to your devices directly from your mobile phone. It could be iOS or Android. So you already probably seen your, the Ninja app on your iOS or Android store. If you, and which I'll show you in a little bit when we talk about Android, but you will be able to connect to your devices from your mobile phone only if you're using the newer TeamViewer integration or the newer TeamViewer API. Secondly, one more thing we did was, let me actually go to another customer. Let's go to release demo. You can also connect to your Macintosh devices now. So this works more like a Splashtop now. There is no syncing of the devices. It's basically fire and forget. That means I do not have to be logged in to my TeamViewer account. It's a pre-licensed and pre-authenticated session. All I do is I click the TeamViewer icon, and in a moment, it will bring up that device. Boom. This is known to be more reliable than the previous version. And this is also the foundation of our end user sharing feature, which I'm going to talk about next. So this gives you ability to give control to your customers or your end customers to access their devices using the Ninja console. So let's talk about it. Or I believe my Siri just turned on my iPad. Bear with me. Okay. So yeah, so end user sharing is the next feature we'll talk about. So that will let you give control to your customers, uh, and let's see how that works. So I'll go to configuration, go to organizations, and let's go to again, let's go to release demo. There is a new tab that appears here, which is end users. What this does is, here is an invite-based system. So you will add, I'm actually gonna bring up this guy. So you can add your end user's email address here, and this will send that person an email. Let's take a look how that looks like. An invite, and once you accept it, you will see this console. This shows you all the devices that you've shared, which are actually decided by what you define here. You can add more devices if you want to. And also on this screen, you can specify which all modes of remote control you want to provide to your end users. So for Windows, you have three options: RDP, TeamViewer, or SplashTop. You also have TeamViewer and SplashTop on your Macs. So if I hover over these devices, for my Mac, I can see SplashTop and TeamViewer icon, and for my Windows device, I have these three icons show up. So all I do is, again, I'm not logged into TeamViewer. I will click this TeamViewer icon, and I'm connected. Similarly, I could do the same for SplashTop. I'm going to connect to my Windows device using SplashTop. Oh, that's what happens during demos. But yes, that's how this feature works. Next, let's talk about the two-factor enhancements that we made in the last release. So many of you might be aware that there's all these ransomware attacks and whatnot happening with all the different MSPs, and also like many of these competitor RMMs getting breached because of all the security holes. So because of that, what we did to Ninja was we made two-factor authentication mandatory, which means any user that you create in Ninja will have to have 2FA turned on in some way, shape, or form. To do that, it's now an invite-based system. So when you create a user, when you save it, it will send an invite email to that user, and they have to follow a wizard-based approach to log into Ninja. There's also one more thing that's tied closely to it, which is actually the concept of something called a global administrative idle. What this means is all the key actions that you perform in Ninja need to be validated with a corresponding two-factor prompt. And since we don't, so that we're not annoyed too much with these continuous prompts coming your way, there'll be a timeout between two specific entries. So let me reword this. Let's say you go to a policy, you make some changes. I make a change here, I hit save. It will prompt me for my two-factor authentication. And I have to verify this in order for me to save this policy. Now, I will not be prompted for the time that you specify in my global admin timeout. So for 2 hours, I will not receive this prompt again. If I make a change to a policy, if I, let's say, create or update a scheduled script, if I create, update, or delete a user, or if I create or change any node roles. So we deem these actions as highly disruptive, and some people, or if this gets into the wrong hands, they could create lots of mess, for the lack of a better word. So that's how the two-factor authentication process works. Next, let's talk about CLI enhancements. And I can definitely say that Ninja CLI is probably one of the best command lines out there. If you compare us against the other RMMs, we've made it even better now. And what I mean by better is, let's actually dive into into a device, and let's see what better means. So let's go to training 2, which I prepared for this demo again. First of all, we've also added the ability to PowerShell to those devices directly. So that's one. So you can see how fast that is. But that's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to go to the CLI. So we also now allow tab browsing. So I'm going to do a CD. I'm going to just say P, tab, tab, tab. So it's basically the same experience as if you were sitting on the machine directly. Further, I can go to, let me show you something I want to showcase. Here you go. So you can actually use your mouse or keyboard controls within the command line. So this shows you how much better it's become from what it was before. So you can also actually use things like Python or Postgres or Bash directly in the CLI now. Close this out. Next, let's talk about our Android app. So we released our Android app to the public the same day the release went out. And let me give you guys a sneak peek at what that looks like. This is my Google Pixel 3a, which I'm using to showcase the Ninja app. So I'm logged in. This is analogous to your, let me actually clear out the screen so that you can see. Here we go. So this is analogous to your system dashboard, shows you all the servers that are down. If I touch that, I'm going to see the actual servers that are down. If I go to software patches, it will show me all the pending, failed, or approved patches. And if I keep it tapped or keep it pressed, I will see all the actions available that I can perform in this specific context. So for pending patches, I can approve or reject. For failed patches, I'm going to again long tap or long press, and I can reject them. And for approved patches which are not yet installed, I could reject them. Let's go back, go to alerts in progress. And here are the alerts in progress. I could again long press and reset them right from here. I could go to devices with pending reboots. And of course, long press gives me an option to reboot either in a normal fashion or in a forced fashion. Threats detected, active tasks, again, for all the users that you guys use Ninja already on day-to-day basis, you know what that is. Let's go to organizations. So this shows you all the orgs with all the alerts or things that need attention. So you see all these color codes as well. And here are all the system level activities. If I go back to organizations, and if I again go back to, let's say, release demo, I will again see the customer dashboard. So the dashboard focused on this specific customer. I can click, touch on devices and see all the devices under this specific org and see all the org specific activities. And then if I go back to devices and let's again go back to maybe, let's say, training 2. Here are the device details. So all the things that you care about the device in a nutshell. Some more key value pairs that make sense to look at from a troubleshooting perspective, and all the device activities for this device. And if I touch the play button, it gives me all these options. I could run a script, remote controlled into the device using Splashtop, TeamViewer, or RDP. I could also open the task manager, perform a wake on LAN, and reboot. So let's go to task manager quickly. This shows you a real-time task manager and shows you the current CPU, memory usage, and whatnot. I can also go to the processes. I can again long press a process and kill it right from here. I can go to services, long press, start, stop, or change that process status or the service status, apologize. Yep. Further, I could press the play button and let's go to TeamViewer maybe. All right, there you go. That's your screen. So this is how the Android app works. Maybe there's a couple more things I could show you. Let's see. Let's go back to Ninja. There's a concept of groups. So again, all the groups that you created in the main app will also show up here. And if I, of course, touch a group, I can see all the devices underneath. I can also see all the recently accessed devices. And here is where you enable your push notifications. So I just toggle that to enabled. I can also customize the notifications for this device. So I can pick the different schedules if I want to. So I could make it 24/7, or I could make it on weekdays, or even select a custom schedule. So maybe on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I don't want to be bothered, but on the other days, I want to be alerted from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And yep, that sums up the mobile app. Now, I would love to pass this over to Eric Stansky, who's going to talk about the next feature, which is our ConnectWise enhancements.
Hopefully everyone can see this okay now after the presentation's changed. Great. So for ConnectWise, we've made an enhancement with how our devices will appear in ConnectWise. To do that, we first started with the concept of device roles. So here in Ninja, we now have the ability to create custom device roles. What this does is it allows us to create multiple options in Ninja. So prior to this release, you had workstation, server, or Mac, and then all the various NMS roles. Now we have complete flexibility. Could say conference room, for instance. Make that a Windows desktop and laptop. And now we have multiple options. This is going to allow us to assign default policies here and do some customization on the Ninja side. But where this ties in is in the PSA integration as well. So the integration is going to be the same. We're going to plug in the URL, the credentials for the API key. The ticket templates will be the same. And then we just go to the settings here, and this is where it's going to be different. So we can map Ninja organizations with sites as well in ConnectWise. So we see here, I haven't mapped this one, but with these other orgs, I've also mapped the locations. Furthermore, we have new product mapping and configuration mapping. So I can create custom mappings per location, whereas prior, everything was a one-to-one. So if we look here at a configuration type mapping like East River, I've taken the role of desktop. I can map it to a managed workstation. And another example here. If we go to products, I can now control how I want the Ninja agents to appear as configurations and products in ConnectWise. So in this instance, I've created a Mac desktop to map to a managed gold. And if I add a mapping, we'll see the other options here, where I can select a role and apply a group. So it can be a little bit confusing depending on how you might use your ConnectWise. This could be relevant or not relevant to you. But what we'll see here in this other one here, I have AV managed by Ninja. So if it's a Mac desktop with AV enabled, I'm also going to associate an antivirus product to that configuration item within ConnectWise. So this should allow you to track a number of different items, whether it be backup, Office 365 licenses, antivirus, different types of antivirus, different roles, right, depending on how they're using machines for your billing purposes in ConnectWise. You can also now set your sync schedule. So this will allow you to put things, on the last day of the month for billing purposes, just to make things cleaner. So this should be a brand new way of how Ninja interacts with ConnectWise. but still allowing the same functionality as before. A couple more items associated is when we do the synchronization, you can force the agreement sync here, and it'll generate a preview by organization and by device, and you'll be able to see, what things are going to now look like in ConnectWise. And you'll also have some reporting, right? So that's going to make things kind of clear, and then you'll see these errors or whatnot if there are any issues, so we can go back and adjust the settings as needed. But otherwise, everything's going to be the same when it comes to ticket templates, how alerts are going to map back and forth, and yeah, should hopefully be a pleasant experience for mostly billing purposes. If anyone wants to go through a setup at some point, we can always arrange that as well. So just let us know.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to pass back over to AJ now. So AJ, I'm going to pass these reins back to you for our presenter status.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, and let's go ahead and let's dive into some questions, shall we? I know we've had quite a few come in, so thank you all so much for sharing those with us today. Like we mentioned earlier, we always love to be able to jump on the line with you and get through some of your questions live. But of course, if there's a question that we don't answer just due to time constraints, we'll make sure that your account manager reaches out to you directly to get you all the answers you need. But feel free to keep popping those in, and we're going to get started. So AJ, I'm going to come back to VMware from the beginning real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Pat is wondering, will this also be available for Hyper-V?
That's a great question. So Hyper-V is slated for, I would say, more like mid next year. We're already looking at what needs to be done there, and it should hopefully be feature parity, if not more, for Hyper-V down the line. So yes, that's coming.
Very exciting. And then we'll jump over to TeamViewer for a little bit. I know we've got a number of questions there. Matthew is wondering, is the agent auto-pushing TeamViewer into Mac?
That is correct. Yes, we do push the TeamViewer host on the Mac as well for the connection to happen.
Fantastic. And then Ken had a question in regards to TeamViewer and remote printing. He says TeamViewer won't currently allow remote printing without a valid license. Is this overcome with the new API?
I believe so. That's a good question, and I was not aware of that shortcoming. But this session is pre-licensed and pre-authenticated. That's the way this API works. So it uses like a universal license that's owned by Ninja, and then using that, it connects to those devices. So it's not really an unlicensed device per se. I would say please try it out. If it does not work, you have my email on the screen. Please let me know, and I'll follow this up with the team or developers. But I would say theoretically it should work.
Awesome. Great question, Ken. And then still on TeamViewer, do end users sync with TeamViewer user console?
So with the new TeamViewer implementation, once you move on to it, there is no concept of syncing. It's fire and forget. Like all the Ninja users, they just connect to a device, and there is no user or device syncing to the TeamViewer account because there is no TeamViewer account that you guys will be using at that point.
Awesome. Thank you, AJ. And then I've got another one here from Charles for you, still on TeamViewer. If they have TeamViewer set up to prompt user for permission, how do they make sure that the end user has unattended access?
That's a fantastic question, actually, and I say that because that's one thing this new API today does not address. However, there's two ways you could do that. One is there's actually a registry entry which support can provide you. So you can use a script to push that out to those devices, and that's going to prompt you for confirmation. But we are actually also going to bring this natively into Ninja. Our goal is to bring this probably in Jan or Feb release, wherein you will see the same screens within the Ninja settings to configure, ask for confirmation.
Fantastic. And then let's go ahead, let's jump over to the mobile app for just a moment. We have a question from Charles as well here. Can the Android app be fingerprint authorized?
So not today. I believe that's something that needs to be added to the functionality. But yeah, it's on our roadmap as well. So yes, certainly soon.
Very exciting. And what about the iOS app as well? Do they have facial recognition on that for their login?
I believe it works today. Actually, let me check that right now as we speak. Yes, the Face ID works on that app today. Yes.
Oh, very exciting. Okay, and then coming back to TeamViewer for just a moment, I've got a question here from Don. He's asking, will TeamViewer on Macs integrate automatically with the Catalina OS, or does it require end user intervention to set up?
I think you guessed it right. So I think with Catalina or Mojave, because of the way they've implemented security, it will require some manual intervention to permit that in the accessibility options. And once you do that, then you will be able to use it. So it's a little painful for sure, I promise you, but I believe everybody in our industry is facing the same challenge when it comes to Catalina with all the new security model they've adopted, which is definitely painful to say the least.
And on the same subject of TeamViewer, will they need to request or opt into the new API?
Yeah, so it's all self-serve. They can actually go to the Ninja console. Let me actually show you how that's done. And you would go into configuration, go into integrations, and TeamViewer. And here is where you switch from the automatic, that's a new way, versus sync, that was the old way.
Fantastic. And just so everybody's aware, because I know I've seen a couple of questions come in about this, we are currently recording this session, so we'll definitely make sure it's available to you within the next 24 hours. So if for some reason you have to jump off, totally fine, but stick around for a few more minutes. We're going to get through some more questions for AJ here. So AJ, I've got a good question here from Dennis, and he's wondering, is there a user restriction to not allow text to create scripts or change policies?
When you say that, I'm assuming that's for the mobile app. Uh, because if that's the case, like there's no concept of adding scripts or creating policies from the mobile app. It's all read only. So what you create on the desktop app is what you'll be using in the mobile app.
Fantastic. And then on a similar note, and I apologize if this is a little repetitive, but will there be an ability in the Android app to run the scripts logged in user or domain user?
I'm sorry, I missed it. I couldn't understand the question. Can you probably say it again?
Sure
Sorry.
thing. Yes, let me repeat that. Sorry. And if, again, if we need to, we can always reach out individually to anybody to make sure that we get all of the information that they need for their question and get them the answers accordingly. But similarly on the Android app, is
Mm-hmm.
there an ability in the Android app to run scripts that are logged in user or domain user?
Right. So yeah, the Android app supports a way to use parameters for scripts. Let me see if I can showcase that. That probably will answer your question in the best possible manner. Let's see. Let's go to AirDroid, view only mode. Let's make this full screen. Let's see. So let's go to the app. Let's go to devices. Let's go to training 2. Play button, run a script. Let's say I'm going to reboot. And under credentials, well, reboot is a bad example because that's like a pre-baked one. Here is where, like, if it was a user script, you will have an option to select the credential to run that, and even the parameters to run the script with. So that might give you an option to run the script as maybe a domain admin or a local admin or any other user for that matter.
And what about running terminal or PowerShell commands through the Android app? Is that possible as well, AJ?
No, not today. It was a hard call, but it's really hard to use that real estate, that limited real estate on a mobile phone to run the CLI commands. So definitely not today, but we are considering that in the future.
Awesome. And then let's go back real quick to VMware. Does Ninja connect only to hosts, or does it talk to vCenter for anything?
Today, it only talks to the hosts. And I don't know if I mentioned that towards the beginning, but we can talk to any host that supports version 6 or 0 and above.
Fantastic. So we'll go ahead. We're going to take just one or two more questions. I know we've still got some coming in, but if we don't get to your question, don't worry. Again, we will reach out to you directly just to make sure that you have all the answers that you need. But we want to save you a little bit of time because we know that everybody stays busy throughout the day. So AJ, my next question for you, is it possible to set a policy to trigger Windows to check for updates as opposed to just apply them?
As opposed to what, I'm sorry?
As opposed to just applying them.
I probably might have a hard time understanding that question, but if you actually go to a policy, let's just pick one. So whatever you pick here to update the script, update the patches, is when the patches will be applied. So that's the scheduled way of doing that. Obviously, you can apply them beforehand if you want to. So let's say you performed a scan, it found a few patches that are in approved state, and once you hit apply, it will install them on demand. So those are like the two ways we support.
Fantastic. And are the credentials for vCenter or for each ESXi host?
They are for each ESXi host.
Fantastic. And then let's go ahead. We'll take our last question for the day. This one's coming from Tanya. So for recurring alerts on a device, is there a way to suppress that notification in the future? And I can give you an example here, AJ, as well, if that helps. They're seeing a notice that a backup drive is full, but they don't need to see that notification.
So what they could do is they can perform, a policy override or a device override, as they could call it, and turn that off if they want to. Or they could also tweak the reset interval to like manual, and that way, like they can just, that alert will not show up again for the foreseeable future. But I would say, the policy override will probably be the best way to do it.
Sounds
if they
great.
don't want to see it at all. Yep.
Well, thank you, AJ, and thank you, Eric, as well. I really appreciate you guys jumping on with us today to walk through all of these new features and enhancements. As I mentioned earlier, it's always wonderful for us to be able to do this with our partners. We love being able to take your questions one-on-one. And thank you, everyone, for sharing your questions with us today. It definitely helps us understand how you're using Ninja and helps us, continue to improve as we go along. So again, if we didn't get to your question, I'll make sure that we reach out to you directly to start getting you those answers. So don't worry. We've also recorded this session, and I'll make sure it's available to everybody within the next 24 hours. But thank you all again for joining us today. I'm really glad that we had the chance to walk through all of these new and exciting features with you. And stay tuned for everything that we do next. If we don't talk to you before then, have a wonderful holiday season, and thank you all again.
Thanks, everyone.